What is going on, everybody? Victor here with a brand new video, and I know I said my last video was going to be my last one for the day, but I got to talk about this one right here because I'm going to talk about an individual who's one of the most underrated fighters in the whole entire world just because he isn't fighting in the UFC. I know what you guys are thinking. Why you gotta talk about another organization? Why you gotta talk about another fighter that we don't know about? It's because I have to. You guys need to know about this individual. You guys need to know about this fighter. He happens to be a double champ in Bellator. He holds the lightweight as well as the featherweight championships of the world. His name is Patrício Freire, aka Patrício Pitbull, one half of the Pitbull brothers, his older brother Patrício, who also fights for Bellator, is also trying to get that lightweight championship of the world if his brother decides to vacate it. Obviously, Patrício Pitbull is one of the best featherweights in the whole entire world. If he were to go to the UFC right now, he'd be in the top three, hands down. If you ask me who would win in a fight between him and Alexander Volkanovski, I'd have to say him. The reason why is because he is one of the best in the world for a reason. He hits like a Mad truck. He's a small guy, the same frame as Alexander Volkanovski. He has the power. He has the jiu-jitsu. He has the kickboxing. He has every single accolade that you can really think of, including the wrestling as well, which is what he was missing before he started training with Triple C Henry Cejudo. He never left his native Brazil to train anywhere else in the world except when Henry Cejudo decided to travel all the way down to his gym in Brazil to train with him so he can become a better fighter, so he could challenge Demetrius Johnson for that belt again. And out of that training sessions, Patrício Pitbull was able to gain something that he was missing from his arsenal. That little aspect that he was missing was the wrestling. And out of that, he's been able to beat all these guys. And he has such a huge resume of fighters that he's beaten. He's beaten Daniel Strauss. He's beaten Emmanuel Sanchez. He's beaten Michael Chandler, who he knocked out. He's beaten Pedro Carvalho. He's beaten Daniel Weichel. He's beaten all these different guys in this organization, which just happens to be the second best organization in the world. And the majority of these guys he's already finished. The majority of the guys he barely had any problems with whatsoever. Obviously, this guy is a finishing machine. He's a knockout artist, and he also submits people at will. He just fought against Emmanuel Sanchez, the rematch, Bellator 255, and it was a masterclass performance. Obviously, it was imposing as well on Emmanuel Sanchez right from the jump, and Emmanuel was able to get a couple shots in, but the majority of them were all blocked until Pitbull was able to find the right hook straight flush onto the side of the face of Emmanuel Sanchez, dropped him, put him in that guillotine, and basically submitted him unconscious. Like I said, this man, Patrício Pitbull, is one of the best in the world. He's one of the most powerful featherweights in the world and one of the most skilled as well. He's obviously been asking for a fight against Alexander Volkanovski. He said he'd put up $1 million against Dana White to see if he can be able to knock out Alexander Volkanovski, finish him in between a couple of rounds. Obviously, Dana White doesn't want to know any of that because if a Bellator fighter does beat his UFC champion, he's going to be extremely embarrassed and he's not going to hear the end of it. So obviously that is not a risk that Dana White is willing to take. Will we ever see Patrício Pitbull, who's the most underrated fighter in the history of mixed martial arts right now? And the only reason why he's not getting the recognition that he is right now is because he's not fighting with the UFC. All eyes are always on the UFC. When people talk about MMA, they always talk about that UFC. They never talk about Bellator or any of the fighters that reside within Bellator. So obviously, Patrício, he's not going to get that recognition unless he fights in the UFC. Obviously, the only way that he does decide to go to the UFC if he goes there by his own will. Or if Scott Coker decides to just let him go, just like Michael Chandler, and tell him, look, you're too good. You've beaten everybody that we could basically throw at you. If you don't want to fight in the lightweight division, we'll let you go to the UFC, get that belt, and prove that Bellator fighters can make it in the UFC and win the championship over there. Or the UFC and Bellator can engage in trade talks. Obviously, trades within MMA organizations around the world are very, very rare. The first one that ever went down was between the UFC and One Championship. Obviously, One Championship acquiring Demetrius Johnson, one of the most dominant UFC champions of all time, for Ben Askren, who just happened to be one of the best fighters in mixed martial arts at that time because of how dominant he was as a result of his wrestling skills. So obviously that was the only trade that went down. Would Dana White ever want to trade any of his featherweights or any of his fighters in general for a fighter in Bellator? There's a possibility because there are a couple of guys that Dana White does not like. And it would have to be a very big fighter. I'm talking about a Gilbert Burns. I'm talking about a Brandon Moreno or any of those type of fighters out there that have big names that Dana White doesn't really want to deal with anymore, depending on how much he likes them. So obviously there are a couple of reasons, there are a couple of ways of how Patricio Pitbull can make it to the UFC, but he's just too loyal. He's too much of a company man, and I doubt that he's ever going to be in the UFC. I believe he's going to retire with Bellator because that's where he's been for a very long time. He basically holds every single record in Bellator, so obviously he's pretty much going to stay there. But until if you ask me if he's ever going to get that recognition that he deserves, I don't think so. As long as he's with Bellator, he's not going to get it. People are still going to overlook him no matter how many people he knocks out or cements. But one of these days, I'd like to see him with the best promotion in the whole entire world, to put his name out there, knock out or finish a couple of guys in the UFC, and get that notoriety that he's always been hoping for, that he's always been wishing for. But we'll see what happens. I just want to talk about Patricio Pitbull, Patricio Freire, one half the Pitbull brothers. One of the best, if not the best, featherweight in the whole entire world. We won't know until he actually fights someone in the UFC, if not the UFC champion, Alexander Volkanovski, or whoever will be the champion at the time if he does decide to make that transition over to the UFC. But if you guys agree with me, disagree, drop a couple comments down there in the comment section, and we'll see what everyone has to say. I obviously think Patricio is one of the best. I believe he is the best in the world for a reason, and he would finish Alexander Volkanovski if they were to fight because he is that good of a fighter. Appreciate you guys for watching this video. I'll drop a couple videos down the next couple of days. I'm going to take a break after this one because I've posted 3 in a row. So appreciate you guys for watching. Stay blessed. Stay safe. Later, guys.